You have come here tonight with questions hidden in the folds of your soul. Questions you do not ask out loud because you fear what the answer might demand of you. There is a moment in every life when the veil slips, when the truth about those around you, those you trusted, those you loved, those you thought you knew, emerges from the shadows like a specter that had been standing silently behind you all along. This moment arrives uninvited, and when it does, there is often a whisper in the depths of your being that says, it is already too late. For truth, once seen, cannot be unseen, and the psyche, once pierced by revelation, cannot return to the illusions that once provided comfort. I tell you this not to fill you with dread, but to invite you into the living theater of the soul, where all masks are eventually stripped away. Every human relationship is built upon a stage of projections. We do not see others as they are, but as we need them to be. Your lover becomes your salvation, your enemy becomes your shadow, your parent becomes the archetype of God or devil, your friend becomes the missing twin you thought fate had denied you. These are not perceptions but constructions, images born from the unconscious. The raw stuff of dreams plastered upon the fragile bodies of living people. And as long as you remain asleep, these projections shimmer with the aura of reality. But when you awaken, when the eyes of the inner seer open, what you behold may terrify you. For you realize you were never truly looking at them, you were looking at yourself. And the moment you see this, it may already be too late to save the bond as it once was. Consider the dreamer who wakes in the middle of a nightmare, gasping for air, sweat dripping down his face, only to realize that the monster chasing him was his own fear incarnate. This is the psyche's cruelest mercy, to reveal that what you feared in another was your own hidden instinct, your own denied hunger, your own secret rage. When you finally see the truth about them, you are also seeing the truth about yourself, and the human mind is rarely prepared for such a collision. It feels like betrayal, as if the universe has conspired to unmask the ones you thought you loved. But the betrayal is ancient, and it originates in the unconscious, where we bartered away the truth for safety. You may say to me, but how can it be too late? If I know the truth, can I not still change things? Yet the psyche has its seasons, and revelation does not arrive early or late. It arrives at the appointed hour. Once it is time for the mask to fall, there is no returning to ignorance. Imagine a child who discovers that the fairy tales were stories told by adults to soothe them at night. The child cannot crawl back into innocence. The myth has served its purpose, and now the child must enter a harder, colder, but truer world. In the same way, when you see through the disguise of those around you, you cannot unknow it. You cannot will yourself to believe the illusion again. Thus, it feels too late to love them as you did, too late to trust them as you once trusted, too late to walk blindly in the dream you co-created. But you must understand, the lateness is not a punishment, It is an initiation. To see the truth about them is to be summoned deeper into your own destiny. For they were never simply external others. They were mirrors. And the moment you recognize the mirror, you recognize the wound that made you project your soul upon them in the first place. The lateness is a death, the death of a fantasy, but all death in the psyche is also the threshold of transformation. When I say it is too late, I mean it is too late to cling to what was false. But it is never too late to be reborn into what is true. Now listen carefully. For the unconscious speaks in symbols and does not hand you its wisdom in plain speech. When you dream of the lover who turns into a stranger, or the friend whose face becomes two-faced, or the parent who becomes a stone idol, your psyche is not mocking you. It is unveiling the deeper archetypal forces at play. Every person in your life has worn the mask of archetype mother, father, savior, betrayer, trickster, shadow. You loved not the individual, but the archetype they embodied for you. And when the archetype collapses, when the veil is torn, you meet them as they are fallible, fractured, human. This is why it feels too late, because what you loved was never fully them. It was the dream they carried for you. Think of the myth of Narcissus. He bent over the pool not to adore himself, but to adore the reflection of his soul which he mistook for another. So too do we lean over the waters of relationship, gazing into the eyes of another, only to find ourselves staring back in disguise. And when the water stills, when the image breaks, you recoil in horror at the realization, I was never truly seeing them, I was seeing me. At that instant, it is too late. The spell is broken. You cannot love them as you once did, because the object of love has dissolved into the reflection of your own psyche. There are those who resist this revelation, who cling to illusion with desperate fists. They say, better to believe a lie than to face this emptiness. But the unconscious is ruthless. What you refuse to see will return in darker, more destructive forms. If you refuse to acknowledge the shadow in the beloved, it will appear as betrayal. If you refuse to acknowledge the archetypal hunger in your friendships, it will appear as suffocating disappointment. If you refuse to see the father or mother in your partner, the relationship will shatter under the weight of unconscious demands. The psyche does not tolerate blindness forever. The moment of truth arrives, whether you invite it or not. I tell you tonight that the lateness you fear is also your liberation. For to finally see the truth is to step out of the labyrinths of projections. It is to say, I no longer need them to carry the archetype for me. I can face the archetype within myself. I can meet my shadow directly without disguising it as another's flaw. I can wrestle with my hunger without turning it into a demand upon my lover. I can confront my rage without accusing the world of hostility. I can honor the God image within without making idols of fragile humans. Yes, it feels too late to return to the old innocence, but it is the right time to enter your maturity. You ask, but why does the truth always arrive in pain? Because pain is the only force sharp enough to pierce the skin of illusion. Without the sting of betrayal, would you ever look beneath the surface? Without the collapse of trust, would you ever question your own projections? Without the wound of disappointment, would you ever ask what within you expected so much from another? Pain is the knife that cuts the veil. It is cruel, but it is holy, for it brings you face to face with yourself. And yet, I warn you, do not mistake seeing the truth with mastering it. Revelation is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of an even harder one. When you see the truth about them, the unconscious thrusts a mirror into your hands and says, "Now, will you look at yourself?" Most people turn away. They choose bitterness, blame, or cynicism. They say, "They deceived me, they betrayed me, they ruined me." But this is to miss the point entirely. The moment was not given to condemn them, it was given to awaken you. If you stop at accusation, you will freeze in resentment and never cross the threshold. But if you dare to turn the mirror toward your own soul, you will discover the deeper work, the integration of your shadow, the recognition of your archetypal hunger, the initiation into individuation. Dreams will often accompany this stage. Pay attention to them. You may dream of old houses collapsing, of masks falling from faces, of mirrors shattering. These are not random images. They are your unconscious dramatizing the truth. The house is the structure of illusion. The mask is the projection. The mirror is your dependence on reflection. When these break, it means your psyche is demanding new ground. Do not cling to the ruins. Enter the wilderness, for individuation begins not in comfort, but in the ruins of the false self. And so, when I say Jung warned it is too late, understand me correctly. It is too late to keep dreaming, but it is not too late to awaken. It is too late to love them as illusion, but not too late to love them as human. It is too late to demand they carry your shadow, but not too late to integrate it yourself. It is too late to remain asleep, but not too late to begin the work of becoming whole. The lateness is only for the child who wishes never to grow. For the adult soul, the lateness is the perfect hour of initiation. You feel the weight of the words sink into you, as though each syllable were not merely a sound, but a hammer against the walls you have built inside. For the greatest fear in the human soul is not to lose another, but to lose the illusion that the other carried for us. To see them as they are means the old contract has expired, and it is here that many collapse, unable to endure the vacuum left behind when a god turns back into a human. They despair, they rage, they cling, they beg the dream to return. But the psyche does not make mistakes. Once the veil has been torn, the tearing is irreversible. It is too late to pretend you did not see, and the more you resist this truth, the more it will corrode your spirit with bitterness. Yet I say again, the lateness is not the end but the beginning, for what you have lost is only the projection. What you stand to gain is your soul. And though this bargain feels cruel, it is the only path toward individuation. The unconscious does not grant gifts cheaply. It demands that you suffer the death of illusion, so that the living seed of truth may sprout. That is why betrayal, disillusionment, and shattered trust are not merely accidents of life, they are psychic initiations disguised as catastrophes. They are the very doorways through which the unconscious drags you toward your destiny. Imagine the alchemist at his furnace. He places the raw substance into the crucible, knowing it must be subjected to fire so that its impurities may be burned away. You, too, are such a substance. Your illusion, your projections, your fantasies are the dross that must be consumed. The fire is the truth you did not want to see. The moment when the beloved's mask falls, or the friend's loyalty cracks, or the parent reveals their human weakness, this fire burns, yes, but without it you would remain forever trapped in base form, never transmuted into gold. When you finally see the truth about them, it is the fire of alchemy, consuming what cannot endure. It feels too late, because the flames are irreversible. But the purpose is not destruction, it is transformation. There are archetypes at play in this lateness. The lover, who demands eternal innocence. The child, who clings to fairy tales. The shadow, who waits hungrily for acknowledgement. The trickster, who snatches the mask away at the worst possible moment. And the self, that hidden totality of your being, orchestrating the entire drama from the depths. Do not imagine that life has betrayed you. It is the self demanding your awakening, for the self has no interest in your comfort. Its only concern is your wholeness, and wholeness requires that every projection be withdrawn, every illusion burned, every mask discarded. To cling to another person as savior is to resist the self's demand that you become your own savior. To cling to another as scapegoat is to resist the self's demand that you face your own shadow. Thus, when the truth arrives, when the lateness pierces you, it is the self announcing, the time of illusions is over. The hour of reckoning has come. Let me speak to you of dreams, for they are the secret script of the unconscious. When a patient came to me, trembling from betrayal, I often asked about their dreams, and in those dreams, without fail, there were symbols of lateness, trains already departed, doors closing, sun setting, weddings where the bride or groom arrived too late. These images are not arbitrary. They are the soul's way of saying, a phase of your life is finished. You cannot return to it. You missed the train of innocence. You cannot board it again. And yet, these same dreams often contained another element, roads stretching beyond the horizon, new doors opening, suns rising in unexpected skies. The unconscious does not leave you abandoned. It shows that though the old path has closed, a new one beckons, but you cannot walk forward until you accept that the old train has gone. Only those who grieve the lateness are ready to walk into the dawn. The lateness is tragic, yes, but it is also sacred. Tragedy is the language of initiation. Just as the hero must descend into the underworld, just as Christ must hang upon the cross, just as Persephone must be taken to Hades, so must you confront the too late moment in your soul. Without this descent, there is no transformation. You cannot become whole by clinging to fragments. You cannot awaken by remaining asleep. You cannot love truly by loving only your projections. The lateness strips you bare, and in that bareness, the self begins its true work. You may protest, but I loved them. I trusted them. I gave my soul. Yes, you did, and that is why this moment cuts so deeply. But consider, did you love them as they were, or did you love the role they played in your psyche's theater? Did you trust their humanity, or did you trust the God image you projected onto them? Did you give your soul, or did you barter it in exchange for the illusion that someone outside of you could complete you? When you finally see the truth about them, you realize that what you loved was partly yourself, dressed in their skin. This is the unbearable revelation, and this is why it feels too late. For the love you thought you shared was not pure encounter, but projection. And once projection is seen, it cannot be resurrected. But I say again, this is not the death of love. It is the death of illusion. True love is only possible when projection collapses. Only then can you meet the other, not as savior or demon, but as human. Only then can you say, I see you, not as I need you to be, but as you are. And only then can you hope to be seen in return. The lateness burns away false love, so that true love may be born, but most turn back in fear, unwilling to endure the fire. They cling to bitterness and say, I will never love again. They harden their hearts, swearing off intimacy. They declare that all people are untrustworthy. And in doing so, they refuse the initiation. They freeze at the threshold. But for those who endure, who accept the lateness as sacred fire, love re-emerges. Not the blind love of projection, but the luminous love of recognition. Listen to me, for this is important. The psyche does not waste suffering. Every wound becomes material for transformation. If you carry your wound consciously, it becomes a doorway to the self. If you carry it unconsciously, it festers into resentment, neurosis, and despair. The lateness is a wound, yes, but it can also be your initiation into wholeness. Ask yourself, what part of me did I see in them? What archetype did they embody? What shadow did they carry for me? What hunger did I project into their hands? And when you answer these questions honestly, you begin to reclaim what was yours all along. The projection returns, the shadow is faced, the archetype is integrated. This is individuation. This is the journey from illusion to truth. Do not mistake me. I do not suggest this path is easy. It is agony. It is the tearing of flesh from bone. It is the collapse of worlds. That is why myths tell of heroes descending into hell. Why alchemists speak of death before rebirth. Why mystics speak of the dark night of the soul. The lateness is hell, death, night, and yet every myth also tells that beyond this descent lies resurrection. Gold, dawn, When you finally see the truth about them, and it feels too late, you are living your own myth, enacting the eternal drama of death and rebirth. You are Persephone tasting the pomegranate, Christ descending into the tomb, the hero facing the dragon. You are living the archetype of transformation, and though your ego cries out in despair, your soul whispers, "At last," for the lateness is not the enemy. The enemy is your refusal to accept it. The moment you embrace the too late truth, the transformation begins. The pain does not vanish, but it becomes meaningful. The loss does not disappear, but it becomes fertile ground. The betrayal does not erase, but it becomes initiation. The lateness becomes the portal through which you pass from unconsciousness into awareness, from illusion into truth, from fragmentation into wholeness. Yes, it is too late to return, but it is not too late to become. There is a moment, and perhaps you know it well, when you sit in silence after the revelation has torn through you and everything feels hollow. The air around you carries a strangeness, as if the world you once knew has already dissolved, yet the new world has not yet appeared. This is the interval, the psychic twilight, the liminal space between death and rebirth. It is here that many falter, for the temptation is great to run backward, to beg the illusion to return, to pretend you did not see what you saw. But once the eyes of the soul have opened, they cannot be shut. You may close your physical eyes, you may drown yourself in distractions, in new lovers, in noise, in busyness, but the revelation will remain. It is too late to erase it, and if you resist it, it will follow you like a ghost, haunting your nights, appearing in dreams, pressing against the fragile walls of denial until they collapse. The unconscious is merciless. In this regard, it does not allow you to retreat forever. It demands acknowledgement, and if you refuse to integrate consciously, the truth will break into your life in destructive ways. The beloved will turn into enemy, the friend into traitor, the parent into tyrant, not because they changed, but because you refuse to accept them as they were. Your denial forces the archetype to wear a darker mask. What was once a gentle revelation becomes a brutal confrontation. This is why Jung warned. To ignore the truth once it appears is to summon catastrophe. The lateness becomes punishment only when you resist it. If you embrace it, it becomes transformation. Let us speak of shadow, for it is always shadow that dances behind the revelation. When you finally see the truth about them, what you see is not only their weakness, their flaws, their humanity. It is also the shadow you projected onto them. Perhaps you saw in them a cruelty you could not face in yourself, or a desire you dared not name, or a selfishness you denied. By placing it in them, you preserved your own illusion of purity. But the psyche cannot sustain such hypocrisy forever. Eventually, the mask cracks, and you see in them what has always lived in you, This is the terror of the lateness. It reveals not only them, but you, and the natural impulse is to hate them for showing you yourself. But if you hate them, you hate your own reflection. If you accuse them, you accuse your own soul. This is why individuation requires courage. Not the courage to face the world, but the courage to face oneself. In myths, the hero must face the dragon. But the dragon is never only external, it is always also the hidden shadow of the hero's own heart. To slay the dragon is to conquer the fear within, and when the truth about others arrives, when their mask falls, they often appear to you as dragon, monstrous, terrifying, unrecognizable. But in truth, it is your own shadow roaring back at you. You may attempt to kill it by severing ties, by running away, by demonizing them, but the shadow does not die this way. It only waits, wearing new faces, until at last you recognize the dragon has always been me. Then, and only then, does transformation begin. The lateness, therefore, is not a curse, but a summons. You are being summoned to confront the archetype directly. If you projected the divine parent onto another, you are now summoned to find the divine within yourself. If you projected the savior onto a lover, you are summoned to save yourself. If you projected the shadow onto an enemy, you are summoned to face your own darkness. It is too late to expect others to carry these roles for you, but it is not too late to claim them within. This is the essence of individuation. The withdrawal of projections, the reclamation of archetypes, the integration of shadow, the awakening to the self. But hear me, individuation is not isolation. To withdraw projections does not mean to withdraw love. On the contrary, only when projections collapse can love become true. For as long as you see others as carriers of your unconscious, you do not truly see them. You love a mask, not a person. But when the mask falls, when the truth burns through illusion, when it feels too late to return, then you are finally capable of encounter. Only then can two souls meet in their naked humanity. Without archetypal disguises, this is the paradox. You must lose the fantasy to gain the reality. You must pass through lateness to arrive at presence. The truth ends the dream, but it begins the relationship, and yet this is the rarest path. Most prefer the dream. Most retreat into cynicism or projection rather than endure the pain of seeing. That is why individuation is the road of the few, the narrow path walked only by those who dare to face themselves. Society thrives on illusions, on projections, on shared masks. It tells you, do not look too closely, do not question too deeply, do not awaken too soon. It rewards the dreamers, it punishes the seers, but the soul does not care for society's comfort, it cares only for wholeness. And so it will tear your illusions apart, even if the world calls it madness. To see too deeply is to be cast out But to not see is to remain asleep. You must choose which exile you prefer. The exile from illusions or the exile from truth. In the lateness, there is grief. Do not flee from this grief, for grief is the price of awakening. You are grieving not only the person as you thought they were, but also the part of yourself that lived in illusion. You are grieving your own innocence. And this grief is holy. To grieve illusion is to honor the soul's demand for truth. Do not rush it. Do not suppress it. Let yourself mourn the God image that has died. Let yourself weep for the mask that is gone. For in that mourning, you prepare the ground for something greater. The birth of wholeness. Without grief, there is no rebirth. Without tears, there is no new sight. The lateness breaks you. Yes, but the breaking waters, the seed of the self, perhaps you wonder why the self does not simply reveal itself gently, without pain, without lateness. But the self does not speak in the language of comfort. It speaks in archetypes, in symbols, in shocks. A gentle whisper would not pierce your defenses. A soft nudge would not break your chains. Only the violence of lateness is strong enough to shatter illusion. That is why it feels so cruel, why it feels too late, why it feels like punishment. But in truth, it is mercy, for without the rupture, you would never awaken. Without the lateness, you would remain forever asleep in the dream of projections. The self wounds in order to heal, it destroys in order to create, it kills in order to resurrect. And so I tell you, when you finally see the truth about them, do not despair. Yes, it is too late to return to what was, but it is the perfect time to begin what must be. It is the hour of initiation, the moment of alchemy, the descent into the underworld. And if you endure it consciously, if you resist the temptation to blame, if you dare to turn the mirror toward yourself, then you will rise not as a dreamer, but as one who has seen. You will rise not as a fragment, but as a whole. And then, when you encounter others again, you will not need them to carry your shadow, your savior, your God. You will meet them as they are, and in that meeting, true love, true friendship, true community becomes possible. This is the gift hidden in the lateness. It is not the end of relationship, but the transformation of it. It is not the death of love, but the transfiguration of it. It is not the final word, but the first syllable of a deeper language. To those who dare, the lateness is the doorway into authenticity. To those who flee, it becomes a curse, but the choice is always yours. The lateness has already arrived. It is too late for ignorance, but it is not too late for truth. It is too late for illusion, but it is not too late for wholeness. The question is not whether it is too late, but whether you will walk through the door that has been forced open. You must now imagine yourself standing at the threshold. Behind you lies the dream, shattered and irreparable. Before you lies a road unlit, stretching into the unknown. The lateness is the threshold itself, the closing of one door, the opening of another. To cross it is to accept that there is no return, that the innocence you once had is gone, that the images you once adored are broken. This is a heavy grief, and yet it is the very weight that gives meaning to your step forward. For if the dream had not died, you would never have been summoned to walk this road. If you had not seen the truth, you would still be wandering in illusions. The lateness may feel like punishment, but it is also an invitation. It is the summons of destiny. There is within every soul an archetype of the pilgrim, the wanderer who must leave home when the old ways collapse. When you finally see the truth about them, you become this pilgrim. You leave behind the home of projections, the house of fantasies, the familiar rooms of unconscious bonds. You set out into a wilderness of uncertainty where no one can carry your shadow for you, where no one can embody your archetypes, where no one can save you. This is terrifying, for it feels like abandonment, but in truth, it is liberation. You are free now to encounter the archetypes directly, to meet your own soul without disguises. The road is lonely, yes, but it is the loneliness of truth, not the crowded company of illusions, and it is in this wilderness that the self begins to reveal itself in its fullness. Do not expect clarity at once. The unconscious reveals itself in fragments, in symbols, in riddles. Dreams will speak to you in strange images. You may see yourself wandering through deserts, climbing mountains, crossing rivers. You may dream of carrying burdens, of shedding skins, of losing teeth. These are the images of transformation. The desert is the emptiness after illusion. The mountain is the arduous ascent toward integration. The river is the flow of unconscious energies demanding recognition. The shedding of skin is the death of old identities. The losing of teeth is the loss of innocence. Each symbol is a message from the self, guiding you through the lateness. Do not dismiss them. Attend to them with reverence, for they are your map through the wilderness. There will be temptation to run back into relationships that promise comfort, to cling to new figures who will carry your projections, to rebuild the illusion with someone else. This is the most common error, and it is why so few ever truly individuate. They trade one mask for another, one projection for another, one illusion for another, and so they never meet themselves. The lateness repeats again and again, until at last the soul refuses further delay. If you resist this temptation, if you allow the wilderness to work upon you, then you break the cycle. You no longer need others to carry what is yours. You begin to stand in your own soul, and then, paradoxically, you become capable of genuine relationship because you no longer need others to complete you. You may ask, but if I no longer project, if I no longer dream illusions, what is left of love? I answer, everything. For projection is not love, it is possession. It is the attempt to turn another into a mirror of your unconscious. True love begins only when projection dies. To love without projection is to love in freedom. It is to say, I see you not as savior, not as scapegoat, not as archetype, but as yourself, and I allow you to see me in the same way. This is not the intoxication of fantasy. It is the sober radiance of reality. It is rarer, quieter, deeper. It does not dazzle like illusion, but it endures like truth. This is the love that is born in lateness, not the feverish love of dreams, but the luminous love of recognition. The lateness, then, is not the death of love, but its initiation. It strips away the masks so that encounter becomes possible. It destroys the illusions so that reality can shine through. It feels too late because the old way is gone, but it is right on time for the new way. The tragedy is not lateness itself, but our refusal to see its gift. To those who resist, lateness becomes bitterness. To those who embrace it, lateness becomes liberation. Let me return once more to myth, for myth is the truest language of the soul. Consider the tale of Oedipus. He sought to avoid his fate, but in fleeing it, he ran directly into it. His tragedy was not that he was cursed, but that he was blind to his own truth until it was too late. And yet, in that lateness, when his eyes were opened at last, he became something greater than king. He became seer, his sight was taken from him, but his vision was awakened. So too with you, when the lateness strikes, when the truth blinds you, you lose the eyes of illusion, but gain the vision of the soul. The world may call it tragedy, but the unconscious calls it initiation. Or consider the crucifixion. It was too late to save the innocence of Christ, too late to preserve him from betrayal, too late to prevent the death, and yet, in that lateness, resurrection was born. The lateness was the very path to transformation. Every myth, every religion, every culture speaks of this pattern: lateness, death, descent, and rebirth. Your psyche is enacting the same eternal drama. To despair is to halt at the cross. To endure is to walk into resurrection. Now I must ask you, what will you do with your lateness? Will you harden your heart and curse those who unmask themselves? Will you cling to bitterness and say, all are liars, all are traitors, all are cruel? Or will you dare to turn inward and ask, what part of me have I seen through them? What shadow have I refused? What archetype have I projected? If you choose the latter, the lateness becomes the most important moment of your life. It becomes the doorway to individuation, the portal to wholeness. It becomes the hour when you finally begin to see not only them, but yourself. Do not imagine this path is linear. The psyche moves in spirals, in waves. You will think you have integrated, only to find new layers of projection. New masks collapsing, new lateness arriving. This is the rhythm of individuation. Each lateness is another death, another rebirth. Each revelation is another descent, another ascent. The work never ends, because wholeness is infinite. But with each lateness, your vision grows clearer, your love truer, your selfhood stronger. You become less a prisoner of illusion, more a servant of truth. You become less a dreamer of fantasies, more a bearer of reality. You become less a fragment, more a whole. And so I say to you now, as one who has walked this path and seen many souls walk it, do not fear the lateness. It feels cruel, but it is holy. It feels like an ending, but it is a beginning. It feels like too late, but it is the perfect time when you finally see the truth about them. It is too late to remain asleep, but not too late to awaken. It is too late to love illusions, but not too late to love reality. It is too late to live in projections, but not too late to live in wholeness. The lateness is your threshold. Cross it, and you enter the kingdom of the self. Let the illusions die. Let the masks fall. Let the grief wash over you. And then rise. Rise as one who has seen, one who no longer hides from the shadow, one who no longer clings to projections, one who no longer fears the lateness. Rise as one who embraces the self, for only then are you truly alive. Only then are you truly whole. Only then are you truly free. And when others ask you why you carry a strange light in your eyes, why you love with a depth they cannot understand, why you walk with a solitude they cannot fathom, you will not explain with words. You will know within. I have seen the truth, and though it was too late for the dream, it was right on time for the soul.